Story of Jonah and the whale. If running from your problems was an Olympic sport, Jonah would have taken home the gold. Buckle up for one of the Bible's wildest ride-or-drown stories filled with storms, sulking, seafood, and soul-searching. Whether you've heard it in Sunday school or just know the whale guy, the tale of Jonah is so much more than a man swallowed by a sea beast. It's ancient, yes, but it reads like a divine comedy. Think Book of Job meets Castaway, with a theological twist. So let's start the video. You're a prophet chosen, respected, called to greatness. You hear the voice of God loud and clear. And what does he say? Jonah, arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. Now, Nineveh wasn't exactly Disneyland. It was the capital of Assyria, Israel's longtime enemy. Known for their ruthless military campaigns, torture methods, and grandiose temples, they were feared and hated in equal measure. God asking Jonah to warn them was like asking a firefighter to put out a blaze in his arsonist's home. So Jonah runs, and not just a little jog. He books it 2,500 miles in the opposite direction toward Tarshish, a port city possibly in modern-day Spain. If Nineveh was east, Jonah sailed west. Why? Because even prophets sometimes ghost their divine assignments. But here's the kicker. How do you hide from an omnipresent God? Jonah boards a Phoenician ship, blending in with the crew like someone dodging their manager at a staff party. But halfway through his Mediterranean cruise, God sends a storm so furious the sailors start chucking cargo and praying to every god in their Rolodex. Here's where it gets cinematic. The sailors draw lots to find the storm's culprit. The lot falls on Jonah. He confesses everything the God he's running from, the mission he's ditching, and how the storm is his fault. Now, ancient sailors were tough, but this confession spooked them. Jonah suggests the only way to calm the storm is to throw him overboard. The sailors, reluctant to murder a man, try rowing harder, but God's storm rages harder. Finally, with a desperate prayer, they toss Jonah into the waves. And instantly, the sea goes still. Just like that, the sailors start fearing and worshipping Jonah's God. The man of God who ran away just caused a ship full of Gentiles to convert. God 1, Jonah 0. Act 2. Inside the belly of the beast. Cue the strangest Uber ride in biblical history. Jonah, flailing in the sea, is swallowed by a great fish. The Hebrew word here is dag gadol, which doesn't specify a whale, but translators often imagine one for visual impact. Real talk. Can a human survive in a fish's stomach for 3 days? Science says no stomach acid and lack of oxygen make it implausible. But remember, this is a miracle story meant to be symbolic, not scientific. For 3 days and nights, Jonah sits in his fishy Airbnb marinating in regret, brine, and possibly shrimp cocktail. But in that darkness, something shifts. He prays. Not a shallow, get-me-out plea, but a full psalm-like prayer, rich with sorrow and surrender. He says, "In my distress I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From deep in the realm of the dead I called for help." He's no longer running, he's repenting, and God hears. The great fish vomits Jonah onto dry land. Yes, vomits. The Hebrew word implies a violent expulsion. God, patient as ever, gives Jonah a second chance. "Go to Nineveh," he says again, and this time Jonah obeys. Act 3. Nineveh's shockingly spiritual glow-up. Nineveh was no small town. The Bible describes it as a city so vast it took 3 days to walk across. Archaeologists have confirmed it was one of the largest cities of its time, full of ziggurats, bustling marketplaces, and yes, all kinds of spiritual corruption. Jonah walks into town with the most underwhelming sermon in prophetic history. 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown. That's it. No fire, no brimstone, no call to action, just a warning, and yet the people listen. In a twist no one saw coming, the Ninevites, from peasants to palace, begin fasting, weeping, repenting. Even the king takes off his royal robe, dons sackcloth, and sits in ashes. He issues a city-wide decree. No one eats, not even the animals. Cows in burlap sacks. That's how seriously they took it. God sees their repentance, and in divine compassion, he relents. The city is spared. Cue confetti, right? Well, Act 4, Jonah's pity party under a plant. Jonah is livid. This was not the ending he signed up for. He storms out of Nineveh and sets up a front-row seat east of the city, hoping maybe, just maybe, God will still unleash fireworks. But when nothing explodes, Jonah pouts. He rants at God. "This is why I ran. I knew you were gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love. In other words, I knew you'd go soft." Jonah is having a full-on tantrum. So God, being the ultimate teacher, decides to make it a teachable moment. He causes a leafy plant, perhaps a castor oil plant, to grow overnight, shading Jonah from the sun. Jonah's mood improves temporarily, but then God sends a worm to chew the plant. The next day, the plant withers, the sun blazes, and Jonah is back to wishing for death. God says, "You care more about this plant which you didn't grow than about a city of 120,000 people who don't know their right hand from their left." Mic drop. The story ends there. No answer from Jonah, just a divine question still echoing. What do we value more, our comfort or other people's lives? The deeper dive: myth, meaning, and metaphor. Is Jonah a historical account? Most scholars classify it as a parable or allegorical narrative rather than strict history. Its literary structure, satire, irony, symbolism makes it unique among prophetic books. It's less about whale biology and more about theology. Jonah represents the human condition: stubbornness, self-righteousness, tribalism. Nineveh represents the other outsiders, enemies, the unworthy, and God's mercy says they're worthy too. The great fish, a metaphor for transformation. Jonah enters the belly one man and emerges another. Holy humor. Prophet versus plant. If Jonah were a sitcom character, he'd be the guy who makes everything about himself. The dramatic speeches, the exaggerated death wishes, the obsession over a plant. Even the fish seems to have better emotional intelligence, and yet that's what makes the story relatable. Jonah is us. Not polished, not always obedient, often grumpy, dramatic, confused by grace. And God, still pursuing, still patient, still teaching us with worms and weather patterns. Jonah's cross-religious fame. Jonah's story isn't confined to the Bible. In Islam, Jonah is known as Yunus, one of the revered prophets. The Quran mentions his repentance and how he was saved by God after acknowledging his mistake. "There is no God but you, glory be to you. I was indeed wrong." Muslims honor his devotion and view his story as one of hope, that even after grave errors, forgiveness is possible. In Judaism, Jonah is read during Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, highlighting themes of repentance, divine mercy, and compassion for all, not just the chosen few. Even modern literature and pop culture love Jonah, referenced in Moby Dick, VeggieTales, and countless sermons and novels. His tale speaks to rebels, skeptics, and seekers alike. If you enjoyed this video of fishy tale of prophets, storms, and second chances, smash that like button, subscribe for more legendary stories, and ring the bell so you never miss a moment of the madness.